Yo, what is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Spectacular Spider-Man Season 3. Sorry the series took a hiatus. I haven't really found the time to get to grip with the episodes and the series as a whole, but I do plan to finish Season 3, so I am bringing it back again. But if you haven't seen this series before, then make sure to go and watch Episode 1 all the way through to now, so you can be up to date. And if you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, so you do not miss Episode 10 and another video as soon as it comes out on the channel. I post all types of Spider-Man content, from the news, from the games and movies and the shows, and also fan fictions. But with that being said, let's get straight into it. Episode 9, Deception. We start this episode right where the last one left off, with Harry Osborn meeting Gwen Stacy at her house. Harry is broken, confused. He doesn't know what to think, how to think. Gwen is shocked as she catches Harry in her arms as he breaks down at her porch. She is frantically asking him questions. Are you okay? Where have you been? What's going on? Harry whimpers and doesn't answer. Gwen brings Harry inside and sits him down. She says hold on, she's going to call Peter, when Harry bursts out with a massive jolt of energy, screaming not to get Peter. Gwen is taken back by this as she slowly puts her phone back in her pocket. Harry is in a state of shock and despair. We cut to 1 week later in Midtown High. Peter sees Gwen in the hallway. He approaches her and says hi. Gwen is awkward though. Something's off. Peter narrates to himself in his head that it's been this way for a week. He thinks to himself that she surely can't be still hung up about that kiss. Can she? Peter carries on with his day as we slowly start to realize as an audience that Gwen hasn't told anyone about Harry and has kept him a secret. We cut to Gwen after school as she returns to a little hideout where Harry has been staying for a while. It's revealed that Gwen has been trying to get what has happened out of Harry, but he didn't want to talk. This time around, he does. And with a shiver, Harry explains everything. How he took the green, how he became the Green Goblin, and how Wilson Fisk took the only thing left that he had. He says he still wants to kill him. Gwen says he doesn't have to do that, and that he can get better. Harry says he must. He has to, as he breaks down and starts to cry. Harry says he doesn't want to get arrested. He can't. Gwen says that they'll work out something, although worried herself that she might get into trouble for knowing she's hiding a convict. She desperately needs to tell Peter. She needs to get it off her chest. We cut to Spider-Man, who is contemplating the situation with Gwen, where the crime scene goes down as he hears police cars rush to the scene. Gwen calls him during his swing over there, as she wants to tell him about Harry. Peter declines and says that's the worst timing ever. Gwen thinks to herself that maybe he just feels awkward about the whole kiss situation that they had. Meanwhile, Peter is dealing with a mass of criminals. This is when we learn over the last week Fisk's empire has grew to immense levels after his takeover of Oscorp. His forces are so strong that they're overwhelming police, and New York is slowly becoming a war zone and a dangerous place to live. Spider-Man aids the police and they defeat the criminals. We cut to a scene with Spider-Man and Captain Stacy. They discuss the situation that they're in. The Goblin is MIA. Fisk is now in control of one of the most powerful companies on the planet. They're in dire need of some help. Stacy also says that they can't arrest him or even get a warrant for Oscorp due to the amount of power he holds over the courts, which really puts into perspective how much power Norman Osborn had when he was the higher power at Oscorp. But Stacy said he's going to ask Spider-Man to do something he'd never think of doing before. He says their situation is desperate and he'd never do anything outside of the books, but he wants him to infiltrate Oscorp himself and get some information that can criminalize Fisk enough to put him in for an arrest. None of his crooks will speak, and they have no substantial evidence against him, although they know everything is revolving around Fisk. All the criminal activity, everything going around in New York at the moment is because of Fisk. All they have is Donald Menken's word, but because a contract was signed, they can't really prove anything. It's Fisk's word against his. So Captain Stacy is asking Spider-Man if he'll go into Oscorp and infiltrate himself. Stacy also goes on to explain how he has a daughter, a family, people he needs to protect. And with the chaos, he says, I'm sure you can understand. Peter gets a suspicious look from Captain Stacy, as if he's talking to Peter Parker and not Spider-Man, just for a moment. Peter snaps out of a very awkward state and says that he'll do it. He agrees, as he has people he loves too. People who he doesn't want to get hit in the crossfire. And thus, a few scenes later, we kick on to the main bulk of the episode, Spider-Man infiltrating Oscorp. This part of the episode will be intense, action-packed, and thrilling. Spider-Man will be crawling through the vents and sneaking around Oscorp in classic fashion, taking down guards and enemies similar to the stealth missions we see in Spider-Man PS4. He's on the hunt for a drive or something where he can claim information for the police to have an arrest warrant for Fisk. Spider-Man finally finds something when he's interrupted by none other than the Prowler, Fisk's right-hand man. Spider-Man turns around and gets into a fighting pose. The last few times these two have met, Spider-Man has been outmatched, but this time, it's game on. He won't lose again. They engage in battle. It's scrappier than the first times, and Spider-Man tries to hold his own. Guards are alerted, and thus Kingpin as well. Prowler smashes Spider-Man out of the window as Peter tries to keep the fight within Oscorp as to not hurt civilians below, as he web kicks Prowler back onto a lower level. The Prowler once again spears him out of the window as they crash land on the pavement below. They fight each other and the battle is fierce. Spidey's suit becomes ripped and torn. Spider-Man gets the upper hand, however he finally defeats the Prowler once and for all. The Prowler is arrested, as Spider-Man hands a drive to Captain Stacy with all of the information on criminal records, everything. Stacy says that it's time for the big showdown. This will be enough evidence to take down Fisk once and for all. Spider-Man agrees and says that the big final act is finally coming. After all is settled, we get a scene where Peter calls Gwen back. Gwen seems nerved and says that he can't tell him over the phone what she was going to say, and that they need to meet in real life. Peter leaves and Aunt May tells him not to be back too late. He says he's just going to meet Gwen. They meet one another and Peter asks if things have been awkward because of what happened, and Gwen says no, but something has happened, something big. She tells him that Harry came back, and says that he was the Green Goblin. The Spider-Man side of Peter saw this coming, although he didn't want to admit it. But to play up the Peter Parker side of things, he acts surprised. Gwen explains to Peter how he came to her all battered and bruised last week after the fight he had with Wilson Fisk, the guy he's been working for to try and get Oscorp back. Peter is in shock. This puts Peter in a very, very difficult position. On one hand, the girl he's falling in love with wants to protect his best friend from going to prison, but on the other, he's pledged and finally regained the trust of the public and the police force through the faith of Captain Stacy. Not to mention, that's the girl who he loves' father. Peter has a situation on his hands, and no matter what the outcome, it's a lose-lose situation for him. He has to pick his responsibility as Spider-Man or his friendship as Peter Parker. An ultimatum, if you will. Something that constantly plagues Spider-Man's life. And at the end of the episode, we cut to Oscorp Tower. Kingpin is in peril. He knows he's lost, but he won't go down without a fight. Once and for all, he will kill Spider-Man. But on the horizon, a new threat lurks as an orange figure lingers on a glider similar to that of the Green Goblin, pledging his destruction to Wilson Fisk's empire. And that is it for episode 9 of Spectacular Spider-Man Season 3. If you did enjoy the episode, make sure to hit that like button and comment down below what you thought and where you think the story is going to go next. If you want to see episode 10, then make sure to share, subscribe, and like to help out the channel. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Take care, and peace.